live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of 365 Sports here in beautiful New York City. Welcome on into what is a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. You can get at me on the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. You can also follow me on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. If you are watching us live on YouTube, welcome. How you doing? Make sure you subscribe. If you're consuming us after the live show does end, youtube.com/@365sportsyt, youtube.com/@365sportsyt. Subscribe. Zach Jackson, who does a very good job covering the Cleveland Browns. We're going to continue our NFL offseason coverage. He is going to stop by, and that's going to be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time today. But the NFL world is in Indianapolis for the Combine, and we inch closer and closer to the NFL draft. So this is what I want to do in the opening segment today. I want to take a look at the top 10 picks in the draft, and I'm going to give you mock draft 1.0. Now, this may change. This is a combination of maybe some player preferences that I do have, but I try to keep it to as much as I can, not necessarily what should happen, but what will happen. And sometimes do I have some beliefs on what should happen, and do I think like, hey, this player is better than that player, but you keep on hearing the coverage, and then you say, okay, well, maybe that's not what will happen. So you have the Raiders with the first pick, the Jets with the second pick, the Cardinals with the third pick, the Titans with the fourth pick, the Giants with the fifth pick, the Browns, here we go, Brownies, here we go, with the sixth pick, the Commanders with the seventh pick, the Saints with the eighth pick, the Kansas City, how about those Chiefs, in at number 9, and then the Cincinnati Bengals in at 10. Let's start at number 1. This one's pretty easy. This is the most obvious pick in the draft. It starts at the top. The only true thing we know about this draft so far is that Fernando Mendoza is going to be the number 1 overall pick. The quarterback via Cal and Indiana had truly a remarkable college career and an unpredictable college career. When he transferred over a year ago from Cal to Indiana, who had Fernando Mendoza? Forget about being the number 1 overall pick. How about a first-round pick? How about a second-round pick? And Mendoza goes to Indiana, and he takes over a football team that surprisingly in year 1 under Kurt Cignetti, where Curtis Rourke made the college football playoff, and they were in the CFP. They got beat up pretty good in that game up against Notre Dame. And many of us just thought, okay, that was it for Indiana in terms of them dominating college football or being a major talking point in college football. Most people last year thought Indiana was going to lose anywhere from 3 to 4 games. And no one could have predicted that they would have been undefeated, that they would have been national champions, and that Fernando Mendoza would have been the Heisman Trophy winner. Those things weren't expected out of Indiana. Like, now we look back at the Indiana story and we say, all hail Kurt Cignetti. Cignetti's the best coach in college football. But the reality of the situation is, I think the majority of people nationally at the end of year 1, they thought that was going to be the apex, and they weren't going to bottom out. They weren't going to be horrible. Like, I thought they would lose 3 or 4 games this year. That's still a heck of a season for Indiana. But the fact that they did the unthinkable, they went to Eugene, they beat the Ducks, they had an undefeated regular season. In the Big Ten championship game, they take down the big bad Ohio State Buckeyes. Then they go into the college football playoff, are the lone team in the 12-team format to have a victory coming off a bye. They win that game where they absolutely just crushed Alabama. Who would have ever thought that would be a sentence? Then they follow it up crushing Oregon, and then they get to a national championship game in South Florida going up against Miami, and you saw the grittiness of the quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, that legendary touchdown run. And then when Carson Beck was trying to go win the game, their defense did stand tall with an interception, and the Hoosiers go down as one of the all-time great stories that this sport has ever seen. And they are the most impressive national champion I've ever seen in college football. Not the best, not the most loaded roster, but the most impressive national champion because of how unlikely the last 2 years of Indiana football has been. And Mendoza is a smart quarterback. Mendoza is a tough quarterback. I'm not sitting here as the Raiders take him number 1 overall and telling Raiders fans to get ready in 20 years from now to go see his bust in Canton, Ohio. I'm not saying get him fitted right now for a gold jacket, but I believe Mendoza is good. I think he'll be good in the NFL. Now, it will be up to him to show that he could be more than just good, that he could be maybe very good, that he could maybe be great, that maybe he could be elite. That's up to him. But he has the tools. You see the way that he throws the football and how quickly the ball gets out of his hand. And you saw the zip that he had, especially in that national championship game and then the round prior. This guy is the best quarterback by far in this draft. I guess number 2 would be Ty Simpson, but I'm not running to the podium to hand in a draft card if I have a first-round pick in the draft and I'm looking for a quarterback to go take Ty Simpson. So the Raiders have been asking for hope for years and years and years. The Raiders now have Brock Bowers. They have Ashton Genty. They have their new head football coach in Clint Kubiak. Yes, they have to fix and address the offensive line, but you have 3 young players in Mendoza, Genty, and Bowers that have been 3 enormous players in the last half decade of college football. Bowers being one of the great tight ends that the sport has ever seen with that Georgia program. Genty having an unbelievable single season where, in my opinion, and I voted him number 1 for the Heisman Trophy that year over Travis Hunter, but Travis Hunter ended up winning it. But what he accomplished at Boise State is truly remarkable, him winning the Maxwell Award. And then you take a look at the quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, ushering this era of Indiana football for this past season to truly make them one of the more remarkable stories ever. I'm not telling you that it's definitely going to work with the Raiders. You're still looking in a division where you're looking on up, and you see the Chiefs who are going to rebound. You see the Chargers. You see the Denver Broncos. It's going to be a tough task, but I do think surrounding yourself with this many championship caliber or marquee young players, it gives you something tangible to hold on to where it could help change the culture when your coach is coming in from a Super Bowl champion, when your quarterback is coming in from a national championship. You know all the big games that Brock Bowers did play, and you saw how Ashton Genty dominated college football. If they could find a way to get a serviceable offensive line and then just a good defense, not great, but just a good defense, then the Raiders, I'm not going to say are anywhere close to winning a Super Bowl, but they could be not that far away from finding a way to make the postseason in an AFC that, let's be real, it's wide open. We just saw a postseason this past year that did not have Patrick Mahomes. We just saw a postseason this year that did not have Lamar Jackson, that did not have Joe Burrow. How are those 3 teams going to rebound? Are the Jaguars definitely going to be in the playoffs this upcoming year? I can't say that. What's going to happen to the Patriots and the Broncos? The Broncos have had 2 years of success. The Patriots just got to a Super Bowl. Buffalo didn't win the AFC East. The Steelers, let's see what they look like without Mike Tomlin. The Texans have been solid, but they've not been able to take that next step. The AFC is up for grabs. And you don't need to be great, as the Patriots showed, to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. Now, right, let's not put the cart before the horse. I'm not talking Super Bowl for the Raiders, but the Raiders core that they're building, and I don't know if Max Crosby is going to be a part of it, but you have a head coach in Kubiak, and he's got to make that transition, but he did a heck of a job with Sam Darnold with the Seahawks this year. You have a national championship quarterback with Fernando Mendoza. You got a stud running back in Ashton Genty. And then you have already one of the best tight ends in football in Brock Bowers. It's a good young nucleus that the Raiders are starting to assemble. So Mendoza is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Then at number 2, I saw that the Jets earlier today traded Jermaine Johnson. I was thinking of putting Caleb Downs, a safety out of Ohio State, because I do believe that Downs is one of the best players in this draft, and I have no problem taking a safety early because I think Downs is going to be that special. You saw him at Alabama. You saw him at Ohio State. But once that trade came across the news front this morning, that the Jets are trading away a pass rusher in Jermaine Johnson, I said to myself, all right, even though Zach believes the Jets should take Caleb Downs, I think they're going to go with the pass rusher. And that puts you in the conversation for three names: Reuben Bain, Arvell Reese, or David Bailey. I think the Jets should take David Bailey here. I'll see if they will take Bailey, but Bailey had 14 and a half sacks. And I know we got a little Heisman play, but most of that did go to the linebacker and Jacob Rodriguez. But in the national landscape, I thought that Bailey was overshadowed this year because of how awesome the Rodriguez story is. And I thought that Bailey was the best player actually on that Texas Tech defense. And I look at him having a season where he just had 14 and a half sacks. I personally would put Bailey, if you're asking me to rank Bailey, Reese, and Bain, I would give the edge to Bailey being in at number one. And you look at Darren Muji, the new general manager of the New York Jets, who's been there for a season. He traded away Quinnen Williams, got a first-round pick. He traded away Sauce Gardner, somehow found a way to get two first-round picks. You look at what the Jets are doing, this is the year where their line, and Jake Aspman said this to us, usually when you have a team picking at 2, you anticipate their offensive line to be abysmal. The Jets' offensive line is fine. The Jets' offensive line is serviceable. The Jets need more pass rushers, and the Jets need a quarterback. So the Jets have 5 picks in the first round over the next 2 years. This year at 2 and 16. Next year they have 3 picks from, I believe, the one from the Colts, one from the Cowboys, and then their own pick. So you don't have to take quarterback this year. If Dante Moore was coming on out in this draft, which he's not, the Jets probably would have taken Dante Moore at 2. At 2, you're not taking a quarterback in this draft class as long as Mendoza goes 1, and Mendoza's going 1. So after that, do you take a quarterback at 16? Personally, I wouldn't. So if I'm Muji, I am really solidifying the trenches right now this year. And getting a player like David Bailey can help your defense out enormously and can help you get to the quarterback and create turnovers and create sacks for your defense. And by the way, I know that Bailey isn't a defensive back, but the Jets last year didn't have a single interception. Well, how do you help force getting interceptions? You don't need a PhD in football to figure this one out, folks. You get more pressure on the quarterback and you rush the quarterback makes an ill-advised mistake, and then boom, there's an interception. That shows you how bad the Jets were last year. With a defensive-minded head coach, Aaron Glenn, who has the audacity, by the way, to be at the combine and say, ooh, I'm getting my superpowers back. I'm calling the plays this year. Superpowers. I get it. You weren't calling the plays last year. You were overseeing the defense. You're a first-year head coach last year, and your defense couldn't get 1 interception? Not 1 interception on the season? Like, what? Mind blown. Mind-boggling. So I think the Jets are going to go get their pass rush figured out. I have them taking David Bailey, who had 14 and a half sacks a year ago from Texas Tech. Now the Cardinals in at 3. They could go offensive lineman here, and Spencer Furneaux is projected to be the first offensive lineman off the board. But I believe that the Cardinals here, if it is Mendoza 1 and Bailey 2, and even if it ends up being Reese 2, I look at the pass rush needs, and I see Bailey, I see Reese, and I see Bain. You know that at least 2 of them are going to be available because the quarterback's going to go 1, then the Jets probably take a pass rusher. If the Jets don't take a pass rusher, then you'll, if they go downs, then you get the pick of all 3. And could the Cardinals maybe take downs here? They could. When you have Budda Baker, I don't think you need to. So I'm going to say here that the Cardinals go with Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State, who's getting compared to Abdul Carter, where when you put more on his plate, which maybe they didn't do in college, that people think he could be like a Micah Parsons. That's what they said about Abdul Carter. Now, Abdul Carter did not have this special rookie season. We'll see if he's able to grow as a player. I think he needs to grow up a little bit with some of the issues that he caused for himself. But at this stage, it does feel as if Mendoza's going one. The Jets will take a pass rusher. So the Cardinals could weigh a few things. I don't think they'll go wide receiver here. You can never have enough offensive linemen. If you want to go Downs, I am all for taking the best player available there, and Downs would be the best player available. But something tells me that the Cardinals are going to go for someone that could get to the quarterback, just with how it is perceived to be. The three pass rushers are so damn good in this draft, and I'm going to go that the Cardinals take Arvell Reese here out of Ohio State. Now, in at number 4, Tennessee, I would not crush them if they go wide receiver here to help out their young quarterback in Cam Ward. I would not crush them if they go offensive lineman here. But your defensive-minded head coach in Robert Saleh, I feel like when you have a new coach coming in, they're going to try to go help him out on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I would not be shocked if they take Ruben Bain if this is the way that it plays out, or if Reese or Bailey is available, that they end up taking one of those guys. But at this rate, with how far away Tennessee is, and it's not like that division is impossible. I don't know what Jacksonville's going to be long-term. I don't trust the Colts long-term. The Texans are good, but they're not great. I'm just going to go the best player here. I go back to Kyle Hamilton. People said, you can't take a safety so early. I think he either went with the 12th or the 14th pick to the Ravens. You look back, Kyle Hamilton is such a good young player in the NFL. So I would not be opposed taking a safety here. And Downs is a championship player. That's a guy that I think could really fit with what Robert Saleh is trying to do, a jack of all trades in Tennessee. Like, if you go back, and I'll just do this on the fly, Kyle Hamilton, number 14 for the Baltimore Ravens. Kyle Hamilton was drafted in the 2022 draft. Let me just look at the 2022 draft and see how many players did go in front of Kyle Hamilton and if it's a regret. Trayvon Walker with the Jaguars in at number 1. Aiden Hutchinson, 2, with the Detroit Lions. Derek Stingley, number 3 with the Texans. Sauce Gardner, number 4 with the Jets. Kayvon Thibodeau, number 5 with the Giants. Ikem Iwanu, the offensive lineman, Ike Iwanu, to the Panthers, 6. Evan Neal to the Giants, 7. Drake London to the Falcons, 8. Charles Cross to the Seahawks, 9. Garrett Wilson to the Jets in at 10. Chris Olave to the Saints at 11. Jamison Williams to the Lions at 12. Jordan Davis to the Eagles at 13. And Kyle Hamilton to the Ravens at 14. Like, you look back there. Sauce Gardner, rather have Kyle Hamilton. Kayvon Thibodeau, rather have Kyle Hamilton. Evan Neal, rather have Kyle Hamilton. Like, those are 3 right there just in the first 7 picks. And some of them also would be debatable. So I would go Downs here at 4 if I'm the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is where it gets interesting. First draft for John Harbaugh, the power structure in New York. How much power does Joe Shane really have? The Giants will be on the clock here at number 5. I gather from what I read online today that the Giants are trying to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. But you look at the Giants pass rush, you got Dexter Lawrence, you got Brian Burns. They got pieces there in order to get to the quarterback. Could they go Ruben Bain here? Yes. Downs, if he's available. I just mentioned Kyle Hamilton. We know how much Harbaugh loves a safety, but I just had Downs going to Tennessee. If I'm the Giants, and you couldn't crush them for taking a lineman here, especially with no lineman going, offensive lineman going off the board yet. But I'm looking to put Jackson Dart in the best position to succeed. Malik Neighbors, I know he's coming off an injury, but he's an absolute stud. You got 2 backs in the backfield, Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scadaboo. Scadaboo coming off the injury. They're solid. I'm looking to get another wide receiver. And I'm going out and I'm drafting Cardinal Tate, who I think is the best wide receiver in this draft, out of Ohio State. You get Tate from Ohio State. You line him up with Dart. You line him up with Malik Neighbors. We'll see what the run game looks like for the Giants this year. I think you put your young quarterback, who is dual threat, and needs to learn how to slide and protect himself better. But you give him another piece to make that offense a little bit more explosive. And I don't know if if Wan'Dale Robinson is coming back. He had a good year this year. I don't know if he's going to come back in the offseason. We'll see how that plays on out. But getting Tate in at number 5, I would be more than fine if I'm a fan of the Giants, and that's a selection. Now, in at number 6, I would not be opposed, and I don't think the Browns need to go defense here. Maybe the rich want to get richer, and you put Reuben Bain with Myles Garrett, and that would be a hell of a 1-2 punch. That would be awesome to see. But I think the Browns need to get more weapons on offense. Like, you got Shedeur Sanders. They're going to try that out, I think, for this year, for a full season. That's who I believe will be the Browns' week 1 starting quarterback. I don't love their wide receivers. So if you want to take Jordan Tyson here or Mekhi Lemon, or if I got it wrong and Carnell Tate isn't the pick here at 5, maybe they do go wide receiver. It looks like David Njoku's on his way out. Jerry Jeudy's too inconsistent for me. But I think the Browns here beef up their offensive line, and they go with the Outland Trophy winner in Spencer Furneaux out of Utah. That's what I think the Browns end up doing here. I can't crush them if they take an offensive lineman here. I would understand the appetite to maybe go get a wide receiver, or just the rich get richer on the defensive side of the ball. But with the way that this plays on out, no offensive lineman going yet. I'm going to say they take Spencer Furneaux out of Utah. Now, moving along, get into pick number 7, the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are in a weird spot because last year they were a team that went to the NFC Championship game. They surprised so many people. And then this past season that we just saw, 2 years ago, they went to the NFC Championship. And this past season, going into the year, I said, I think the Commanders, they're not going to be dreadful, but I think they're going to miss the playoffs. And I'm a huge Jaden Daniels fan. I know they went out this offseason and they made some moves on the offensive line, trading for Laramie Tunsil. They went out there and they got Deebo Samuel. I just didn't like the construction of that team. And there's always a team that overachieves one year, and then the next year they come back down to earth. And I know Daniels got hurt a bunch, and it probably made the situation worse than it is. But this roster, it's weird to see a team go to an NFC Championship game, and then we're sitting here a year later, and we're saying how many holes are on this roster. Now, like Garrett Ross, I know you're a fan of the Commanders. If I had to say to you, this spot where Mendoza's off the board, Bailey's off the board, Reese is off the board, Downs is off the board, Tate is off the board, Fano is off the board. Like, I understand there could be some need. Right? The Commanders have so many needs.
So many.
I wouldn't be opposed if they take a wide receiver to go help out Jaden Daniels, but I'm going to that defense.
I think you've got to go with the defense. It's been the biggest issue the past couple of seasons, honestly. Like, the secondary sucks. There's just so much inconsistency along the lines. I think in the defensive line, they're getting a little too old there with some of the guys they have. But, yeah, if you have an opportunity to grab, like, Reuben Bain or Caleb Downs or something, you got to do that, man. And I wouldn't be opposed to getting another receiver either. Like, Terry McLaurin definitely needs help. But you've got to fix the defense. Yeah,
and in a weird spot with how those negotiations went, and I know they eventually found the contract the right way. I wonder if they maybe take some calls this offseason on Terry McLaurin.
You might as well at this point. Like, I think he's maxed out. You know what you're going to get. To me, he's not a number 1 wide receiver. I think Terry McLaurin is like a number 2 wide receiver, and Washington's trying to utilize him as a number 1. So if they were able to find somebody that's better, I'm all for that.
Now, up until Daniels, he's never had a quarterback. Really.
No, he hasn't.
And I thought he put up some really good numbers and some really good seasons. Now, he's not a number 1 where you're looking at him like he's Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or Jackson Smith and Jigba. But I don't call him a number 2. He's just not a shiny number 1. Like, he's a guy that there are some games he looks like a 2, but there's a lot of games he looks like a 1. And he hasn't had a long time of great quarterback play. So it's a lesser quality wide receiver that I usually say this for. And I think Terry McLaurin is higher quality than that. He does feel as if he's a 1.5, where I do believe he leans more 1 than he does 2. But my pick here for the Commanders, I'm going to go Reuben Bain.
Oh, it should be. Hell yeah.
With the way that this goes, I'm taking the best player that is available for me at that point. That isn't a running back, because if I'm being honest, the best player available is Jeremiah Love. And if you wanted to do that, Daniels and Love, that would be fun. That would remind me a lot like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But I don't think the Commanders are in a position right now where they could afford to use a pick on a running back that early. Like, if you want to improve that running back room, you could wait later on in the draft, maybe get a Jadarian Price, maybe get an Emmett Johnson just for starters. But I'm curious, Garrett, you being a Commanders fan, if the pick comes in and it is Jeremiah Love, would you be fine with that? Or would you be like, I think they could have addressed running back later and go with a different need?
I think they can address it later. You still got Brian Robinson. That's one where I think that there's enough talent and there's enough depth at that position that I wouldn't want to do it in the first round. I would want to wait and grab somebody later personally.
Okay, so the first 7 picks that I have: Mendoza to the Raiders, Bailey to the Jets, Reese to the Cardinals, Downs to the Titans, Tate to the Giants, then Fano to the Browns, and then Bain to the Commanders. And at number 8, I believe Jordan Tyson is the better player. But Mekhi Lemon's name is rising and rising and rising. 79 receptions a year ago at USC, 1,156 yards with 11 touchdowns. Also note, they have their quarterback, Tyler Shuck. I'm not ready to say Shuck is definitely the guy, but you're not taking a quarterback here. You're going to give him a second year. He showed some real promise in that first year. Chris Olave is entering the final year of his deal, so you could draft a wide receiver that will eventually replace Olave, or you give Olave an extension. He's on the fifth-year option, so you can still tag him for 2 years. Or you give him an extension and you pair up 2 wide receivers, so Shuck really has some things to work with. I'm going to say that they draft Mekhi Lemon here with the 8th overall pick. Then in at number 9, I'm going Jeremiah Love. Love is the best player available at this standpoint. I understand Kansas City could have a few needs, and you can look at the running back position. You go, all right, Kareem Hunt is there, Isaiah Pacheco. That's enough for Patrick Mahomes. If they want to go wide receiver with the uncertainty around the legal situation with Rashee Rice, I know they just drafted Xavier Worthy a few years ago, but you could look at wide receiver here, and maybe this is the Jordan Tyson play. If Mekhi Lemon is still available, which he's not in my mock draft, maybe you go him. I would not crush Kansas City if they go offensive line here. But at this case, I'm going to say Jeremiah Love. And I have him as the best player available at this point. I would draft Love here, and you pair him up with Mahomes. And imagine that backfield when you line up with the best quarterback in football and Patrick Mahomes and stand it up right behind his career at Notre Dame. And then wrapping it up at number 10, it's the Bengals. This was the toughest one because the Bengals have so many needs. They could use help on the offensive line. Wide receivers, I know in theory it doesn't look like a need because you have Jamar Chase signed away. You also have T. Higgins signed away. Do you maybe take a wide receiver here and move T. Higgins? I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world, but I don't think you want to disrupt Joe Burrow. So Chase is obviously safe. I think even though that contract is movable, that they just gave a year ago to T. Higgins, I think he's safe as well. Love is up the board. Even if Love is there, Chase Brown is a good enough running back. You don't need to draft a running back. They could go offensive line. If Caleb Downs is still available at 10, which he won't be, and it's a great mistake if he is, the Bengals should be running to the podium to go get Caleb Downs. Now, I wanted to go a corner here. I just don't love any of these corners, this early. LSU, Tennessee has 2 corners. Like those will be under consideration. I would not be shocked if the Bengals do trade this pick and maybe pick up some future capital. But the Bengals, does feel as if they got to go defense. And from a lot of projections that I see, with Bailey off the board, Reese off the board, Downs off the board, Bain off the board, a lot of people believe that Sonny Styles out of Ohio State would be the best player available here, the linebacker. So I'm going to have the Bengals taking him, which would mean, by the way, you would have Reese, Downs, Tate, and Styles. 4 out of the first 10 picks in this draft would be Ohio State players. How about that, the way the cookie does crumble? Raiders, Fernando Mendoza, my first top 10 mock draft. Jets, David Bailey. Cardinals, Arvell Reese. Titans, Caleb Downs. Giants, Carnell Tate. Browns, Spencer Furneaux. Commanders, Ruben Bain. Saints, Mekhi Lemon. Chiefs, Jeremiah Love. And the Bengals going with Sonny Styles. Now, Garrett, I got to ask you a question here. Not who will be the first 3 players taken in the draft.
Okay.
Like, you could think someone is the best player in the draft, and he may not go to the 27th pick. Like, those things happen. Who are the 3 best players in this draft, in your opinion? Like, if you had to say, these 3 players, they're going to be safe, they're going to go on to have great careers, who would those 3 players be?
To me, in these situations, I usually start in the trenches. I just think those guys turn out well. I'm going Spencer Furneaux for sure. I love him. I think talking with Kyle Whittingham and the how he just kind of praised his offensive line. He said that was the best group he ever had in his time at Utah. And then Spencer was obviously, to me, the best guy on that unit. So I'm going with him. I would say, man, Ruben Bain and David Bailey are up there. I'd probably go David Bailey. And then I'll take Caleb Downs. I think Caleb Downs' experience playing in both the SEC and the Big Ten, his size and speed, I would probably go with those 3.
All right, here are my 3. I'm going David Bailey.
Okay.
And we're in lockstep here. He was such a great player for them last year. And they had so many great players on that defense, so it opens up for other people to eat.
Yeah.
But I thought he was their best defensive player.
Oh, he was. Him and Lee Hunter, in my opinion, were.
Then I'm not saying Bailey's 1, by the way. This is in no order. I would then go Caleb Downs. I think Downs is going to be sensational. I think he's a jack of all trades. He's going to cover so much field. You saw him at Bama. You saw him at Ohio State. That dude's just a football player. I have no doubt that if you take him early, that he's going to be a real special player.
Yep.
And then I'm going Jeremiah Love. I know running backs
You're
aren't
big on Jeremiah Love.
The dude's a freak. He's an absolute freak. He's a bulldozer. He finds like the smallest hole, and the next thing you know, he's rushing in the end zone for 80 yards. Does the hurdling and how
like that.
and how quick he is to hurdle, does it concern me a little bit? Sure, but the scary part here is I don't even think we've seen the best version of Jeremiah Love yet. Because 2 years ago, they were kind of very meticulous with the carries. And I thought they should have given the ball more. You even saw that skepticism in the first 2 games of the season. The game plan up against Miami was atrocious. And looking back at it, it cost them a spot in the college football playoff. So Love was sensational at Notre Dame. I actually think he could be better in the NFL. I am all in, 10 toes down on Jeremiah Love. And all these draft experts, all these draft nerds, oh, you can't use a first-round pick on a running back, blah, 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 blah. I understand your point. I do. But Kansas City at 9, they should be running to the podium if Jeremiah Love is there and handing in the card that says Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. I'm a big-time, and I mean a big-time believer in Jeremiah Love. So I think the 3 best players in this draft, in no particular order, Caleb Downs, David Bailey, and then Jeremiah Love. Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. We'll take a timeout. When we come on back, I will give you my 5 biggest storylines heading into March Madness.
The 4-burner, side sear burner with Clearview Glass stainless steel grill from Monument Grills. Made of tempered glass, which is strong, insulated, and allows you to check your grilling without lifting the lid. Our porcelain-coated cast iron cooking grids offer a large cooking surface of 513.3 square inches, primary cooking area, with even heat cooking. The Monument Grills include LED control knobs and are easy to light with pilotless electronic ignition. Better grilling, better value, Monument Grills.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
Hey guys, I'm Abby Dommett, 2023 CrossFit Games athlete, and I use Airwave because it helps me breathe easier and stay more relaxed during my workouts.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very discreet.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. March Madness is right around the corner. Coming up later tonight for Compass Media Networks, I will be doing the studio hosting, pre-half and post, for Michigan State going up against Purdue at Mackey Arena. I've actually had 3 straight Purdue games, all at Mackey Arena, Garrett. It was Michigan, where Michigan just clobbered them. Then Purdue clobbered Indiana. And then I get Purdue and Michigan State tonight. And that Purdue team, and it's a great guard matchup because you get Fears Jr. going up against Braden Smith, 1 and 2.
Braden Smith's badass.
Respectively, in assists per game in the country. But that Purdue team with those 3 seniors, and I think they've combined to play in 409 games for the Boilermakers. And in college basketball now, it is a rarity where you get that commitment and you get that loyalty and you get that many years out of your basketball players. I know it's a little bit different at Purdue than compared to the rest of the nation. But when you have Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Wren, that's a really good triple threat approach. And those are 3 guys that have been with the program for a long time. They've totaled in 409 career games. I thought that Purdue was going to lose to Michigan. I thought Purdue, when I was doing the game, was going to beat Indiana pretty damn good. Tonight, I don't like to discount the grittiness of Michigan State.
Right.
But Izzo, as great of a coach that he's been to 8 Final Fours, the lone national championship coming in 2000. He has lost 7 straight games in Mackey Arena. Ooh. They have not won in Mackey Arena since 2014.
How?
So they haven't won a game.
I know. That's just crazy.
They don't play every year. They don't play twice every year because of how large the Big Ten is now. But he has not won since 2014 in Mackey Arena, and he has lost 7 straight games in that building. And that's a house of horrors for him. So it's going to be a fun one that I get tonight, and we'll have to wait and see who's going to get the best between Braden Smith and then Fears Jr. But that's going to be a good one. I think that's going to be a game where Purdue will win, but I believe it's going to be a sloppy game that I'll say probably Purdue wins by 6 points would be my guess.
So as many times as you've had the Boilermakers, do you think they can make a decent run? Like, how far do you think they can get in March?
They'll be in the second weekend. Obviously, you always got to see the draw.
Yeah.
But I would be stunned if they're not in the Sweet 16. They feel like an Elite 8 squad.
Right.
Now, they have a kid off the bench, a freshman from Israel, who he's starting to hit. Like the other night up against Indiana, he was shooting the ball in a lethal way with the freshman that has a lot of confidence. So So I think he could be a big X factor for them because you'll talk about Trey Kaufman-Renn, you'll talk about Fletcher Loyer, you'll talk about Braden Smith. He could be a huge X factor because you know how it is in this tourney.
Yeah.
You win. There's always a game that you win en route to a national championship or a Final Four that you win a game that you shouldn't. You don't play your best, and it's usually an unlikely hero. That could be their unlikely hero. I did have Duke UNC a little while back, and I know Duke lost that game, but I was tremendously confident, and I like Michigan.
Right.
I was tremendously confident in Duke beating Michigan, and we saw that over the weekend. You know, that was a huge weekend of college basketball that we just had, and it was headlined with Duke beating Michigan and then Arizona taking care of Houston. I am curious about the Cougars because they have been around the last few years. Kelvin Sampson, I once heckled him.
Did you really?
Yeah, I got to find the
How'd
number.
that go over?
It was Temple. I was in the stands as a fan.
Oh, okay.
I had a few cervezas in the system. It was Temple up against Houston at the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, and Sampson was taking his tie off. There was like a foul, and they didn't call it, and he fell on the floor. And I'm 4 rows behind him. I had the video somewhere on Snapchat. I'm like, tee him up, throw him out. I'm losing my mind. I'm going nuts. You know, I was trying to instigate a little bit. And I forget what the numbers are, but Kelvin Sampson since then has not lost many games. So I'm not saying that I did awaken the beast. I won't be that douchey, but every year whenever Sampson makes a good run, I go and I update the number. I'm curious if I do a quick search. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is from March 30th, 2025. In January of 2019, I tried to force Kelvin Sampson to get a technical foul. Temple won the game. Since that moment, Coach Sampson is 234 with the Cougars with 2 trips to the Final Four. Clearly turning point for the program. March 30th of 2025. So it was probably right after they won the Elite Eight game to go to the Final Four. And then they had that great comeback last year up against Duke, which I still couldn't believe. I've been in buildings for some special sporting events, 28-3 being one of them. I walked out of that building and I was doing the coaches breakfast for the regular season conference champions for the National Association of Basketball Coaches. And they got me tickets to the game on Saturday. They got me tickets to the game Monday. I was flying back, so they said I'd just sell them for face value. So I did. So that was a nice extra like $400 in my pocket. But I remember walking out of that building, Houston and Duke, and I'm just like, I can't believe what I just saw.
Right.
It was 7-point lead with like 40 seconds left. And Duke with the player of the year. And then you had Con Knippel too, who ends up being a very high pick in the draft. That was an all-time gag job by the Dukies. But that Houston team now, and I know the Big 12 is really damn good.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. You have a team that dominates all year. They lose a few games late, and you start to look at them sideways. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, Arizona was undefeated, and they lost 2 games. And people are like, how about Arizona? And then Arizona, they just beat Houston over the weekend, at Houston's spot. But this team, the Cougars, are 23-5. It's just that they've lost 3 in a row to Iowa State, who, at the time was ranked 6th in the country. Arizona at the time was ranked 4th in the country. And then after the Arizona game, they got back on the court and they lose to Darren Peterson in Kansas, where Bill Self was basically imploring Darren Peterson to stay in the game. We're not dealing with your bullshit today.
So I'm glad he did that. Good for Bill Self.
That Houston team, I like Kingston Flemings a lot.
I love Kingston Flemings.
But I am curious to see what they're going to do in this tourney. But to answer your original question, I think Purdue, they should be a Sweet 16 team. I think they can make it to the Elite Eight. If they get to the Final Four, I do think it's going to depend, on their draw as well. But my remaining games for this season, and I think I only have 3 left after tonight, and I did about 10 this year. I have Alabama, Tennessee on Saturday. Then Michigan State, Indiana on Sunday. And then I also have Kentucky and A&M. And by the way, Garrett, I had St. John's UConn the first time, where St. John's had what I thought was a huge win for them, an enormous win for them. Did you see St. John's UConn last night by any chance?
Man, I saw the score. UConn took it to them, dude.
So I was so excited to watch this game. And I tuned in like 15 minutes late. My fault, right? I was making dinner. I was going on someone I used to work with. They wanted me to come on their podcast. I have a TV right here. I have two TVs right here. So I could have put on the game, but for whatever reason, I was running a little bit late, and you have the apps with Peacock, and I still have cable here. So I said, I'll turn it on after I do the interview so I could be focused. I turned it on, and I'm like, what a deflating game. It wasn't ever competitive. Rick Pitino didn't want to talk to the media afterwards. And then you have the Huskies, who are ranked 6th in the country. They didn't just beat St. John's. They embarrassed them 72-40. And it's a shame that game wasn't close. It's a shame that game wasn't good because Pitino and Hurley, they can't stand one another. And that's why Pitino got so emotional after the game and did something that was so out of character for him. It's because he can't stand the living you-know-what out of Dan Hurley. And he's like, we didn't just lose. This is the worst loss in his career from a differential standpoint. To lose 72-40 for a team that, it was the Friday or Saturday before the Super Bowl, you beat and you had a great comeback up against? My, oh my, what a bad look for the Johnnies. And the Johnnies, I have a tough time getting a read on them because last year was such a special season. They should have gone further in the tournament. You had the weird relationship that deteriorated with RJ Lewis and Rick Pitino. But this year, I love Zuby. I absolutely love him. He's one of the most versatile players in the country. But anytime I'm ready to buy in on St. John's, they have a performance that makes me question them. Like early in the season, I thought Alabama was better than what they're going to be. Now that doesn't age well, and they ended up losing them 103-96. They lost to Iowa State. That's fine. You lose by 1. Iowa State's a heck of a team. You get spanked by Auburn. You lose to Kentucky. Like, you look back at that with the Johnnies. They lost to Auburn 85-74. They lost to Kentucky 78-66. Neither of those teams are really any good. Auburn, I know they had a big win the other night, but Auburn is sitting up against Kentucky. But Auburn's sitting there now 15-13 on the season. They're missing Bruce Pearl. And you look at that Kentucky team, I'm a fan of Mark Pope, but them being 18-10 this year is disappointing. They also lost to Providence, who is not good, and I get it, right? It's Big East rivalry game. And just to get embarrassed like that by UConn, Villanova, Georgetown, Seton Hall, it's not really like any moment that you're going to be able to prove yourself. I know Willard's a good coach, and the Cats are 22-6, but even if the Johnnies end up winning the Big East tournament and maybe you see St. John's UConn again, you could avenge that loss. But after St. John's a year ago had such a fun season where they win the Big East and they lose in the second round, it's almost at this point, go prove it to me. Go show that you belong this year once you get into the NCAA tournament. Like, if Pitino doesn't make the second weekend this year, and I know it's all gravy for him at St. John's anyway, but that would be very disappointing looking on back at it. All righty. Let's do this. I will give you, after we just bounce around a bit in college basketball, I'll give you my 5 biggest storylines heading into March Madness. Here's an honorable mention. Dusty May. We all know Dusty May a few years ago took Florida Atlantic University, the Owls of FAU, to the Final Four. His first year at Michigan, they win the Big Ten Conference tournament in postseason play. They had a nice run last year to the Sweet 16. This Michigan team, they're deep. This Michigan team has 5 players that average at least 10 points per game. They're a very good team. And I know at times, right, it wasn't that long ago, they were last week, they're number 1 team in the country, but I have held off on calling them a great team. And you saw that concern pop up against Duke. I get it. Duke is probably pound for pound the best team in the country. They probably have the best player in the country in Cameron Boozer. But am I going to sit here and crush Michigan if they don't get to the Final Four this year? No, I will not. But that is a storyline. Can Dusty May take 2 different programs to the Final Four The unexpected one was FAU. Going into this year, we all knew that Dusty May had a really talented Michigan team, but with how young Dusty May is, and with him only being in his second season at Michigan, I'm not going to be sitting there and crushing him if he doesn't get to the Final Four. So an honorable mention storyline out of the 5 biggest storylines heading into March Madness, an honorable mention will be Dusty May trying to get 2 different schools to the Final Four, already doing so with FAU and now trying to do so with this Michigan team. And at number 5, we were just talking about them. Few losses in a row. Now people are going to question them. Kelvin Sampson, 70 years old. We've seen him take Houston to the Final Four a few times. We saw them get to the national championship game a year ago where they ultimately weren't able to win it. But you don't know how many more times you're going to be able to get there. And this is a year where it feels like there could be anywhere between 15 to 20 teams that could win it all. That number 1 spot has changed all throughout the season. The top 5 has moved around all throughout the season. I just wonder how many more chances Kelvin Sampson, who has done not just a good job, a great job at Houston. And if you look at what he's been able to do at Houston, it would suggest that he already has a national championship. But you don't know how many more cracks you're going to get at it with this good of a team. It feels as if it's just a given that Houston's going to be making a deep run into March Madness. But after the last 3 games have gone, I'm curious to see how they're going to come back. And I'm curious to see if Kelvin Sampson could do the one thing that's missing in his career, and that is cutting down the nets, one shining moment playing, and being a national champion. In at number 4, after the performance last night up against St. John's, and we have seen before the consistency out of UConn. We know Danny Hurley, who is the face of college basketball, right? He is the coach that has the most power. He's the face of the sport, turned down the Lakers a few years ago, all that stuff. The quest for a 3rd championship. Last year, they were going for a 3-peat. I didn't think it was possible. I never thought that UConn was going to 3-peat last year, and they didn't do so. But if you get into the Elite 8, you get into the Final Four with that coach and the success of that program, with what Calhoun did, now what Hurley has brought back, and even mixed in between, you had another national championship winning coach. But I look at, and Kevin Ollie, but I look at Danny Hurley. That quest for the 3rd championship is a storyline. And do I think this is the best UConn team he's had? No. But you still got Caravan there, who just knows how to win. And I look at this UConn team, a year where you may not have to be great to win it all. And I don't know if there is truly a great team in college basketball. UConn is obviously more than capable of getting Danny Hurley his 3rd national championship. In at number 3, it's Tommy Lloyd. I said this about a week and a half back, and I think it's a spot-on comparison. Now, I know Ryan Day eventually got that national championship. But Ryan Day, when he was at Ohio State, and still is, but before he got the national championship, would have unbelievable records. Would not lose a lot of games. And then when you got into the playoff, or when you got into the big games up against Michigan, it was something where it just did not go his way. And even though he lost to Michigan en route to winning a national championship, he won that national championship, and now he's regarded as one of the best coaches in the sport. For Tommy Lloyd, who has been at Arizona for about 4 or 5 years, there's not many losses you could remember. Right now, he's sitting there. He's in his 5th year at Arizona. He's a $138 and 35. A $138 and 35. But in the NCAA tournament, he has not been where he needs to be. You look back at that team, his first year there, that was the early signs of it. And you go back and you see that run that they had at Arizona, and you see the early exits in, from the Wildcats. They got to be better. They just got to be. And when you're talking about Tommy Lloyd, we all know that in the regular season, he's a heck of a coach. A heck of a coach. And they got the talent this year where they could absolutely win it all. But for Tommy Lloyd, you got to go get that national championship. You got to get the Final Four appearance this year. Because at Arizona, you haven't got out of the Sweet 16. In his first year, he did get to the Sweet 16. It was his second year where they lost in the first round. Then third year, they lose in the Sweet 16. They lost the Sweet 16 again. Now you got to get to a Final Four. And you can say, oh, maybe you got to get to Elite Eight, then a Final Four. Maybe it's like a similar trajectory to Purdue, who eventually did punch through and got to the Final Four in 2024 before they lost the national championship to UConn. But Tommy Lloyd, you look at the records, 33-4, 28-7, 27-9, 24-13, now 26-2. Just had that huge victory over Houston. This got to be a year where college basketball is very open, and no one can sit there right now and tell me with 100% certainty on who's going to win the national championship. Tommy Lloyd's got to be coaching in a Final Four this year. Now, let's continue to move along. Jon Scheyer is the second biggest storyline. Jon Scheyer had the Player of the Year in college basketball last year in Cooper Flag. Jon Scheyer had a huge lead in the Final Four, and he blew it, and he cost his team a national championship. This year, after what they just did to Michigan, the momentum is building. The momentum is brewing where a lot of us thought Duke was the best team in the country. Duke, to me, is the best team in the country. Duke has, in my estimation, the most talent in the country. And Duke, even though I like DeBansa, even though Peterson, when he plays, is probably going to be the number one pick in the draft, I think the best player in college basketball this year is Cam Boozer. They're 25-2, this Duke team. They lost to Texas Tech by a point, and they also lost to UNC on that game-winning shot at the three where they led the entire way, and then they lost it, right at the buzzer, 71-68. That's a separation of 4 points. They are, if they get 5 points to go their way, that's the difference in them being undefeated this year. And they got a good game coming up with Saturday up against a gritty Virginia team. They play UNC one more time at the end of the season, and then NC State sandwich in between. We'll see what happens in the ACC tourney. But for Duke, I don't want to say I don't care what they do in the ACC tournament. It's getting back to the Final Four, and even though this is a different group with the turnover from year to year, it's about avenging that loss to Houston and finding a way to cut down the nets. Because when you're the coach at Duke, just getting to the tournament, right? He got to a Final Four, so give him credit. But it's about continuing the Krzyzewski legacy. And Scheyer was a part of the Krzyzewski legacy as a player. Now as a coach, you got to go win a national championship. Like, you look at, I made a Tommy Lloyd comparison for Ryan Day. You look at Jon Scheyer, Duke basketball is like Alabama football, where Kalen DeBoer, his first 2 years in the job, right? First year they missed the college football playoff. Second year they make the college football playoff. People are like, oh, is Kalen DeBoer the guy? Because the standard for the Alabama fan is to win a national championship. Scheyer has won a ton of games. Scheyer is a really good coach. I think after Danny Hurley, I'm not saying Sheyer's the second best coach in college basketball. You have a lot of guys that have been around for a while, like Kelvin Sampson, I would put in front of Scheyer. You could talk about Tom Izzo as well, but it does feel like Jon Scheyer, if it's not Danny Hurley being the face of the sport in terms of coaching, not players, but coaching, I would then say Jon Scheyer would be too. And Scheyer, we all know what he did as a player at Duke, but as a coach, we've seen him get to the round of 32, Elite Eight, Final Four. Now it's getting to that national championship game and winning it all. First 3 seasons, replacing a guy like Krzyzewski. I know he's staff and all that. So 27-9, 27-9, 35-4, they'll be 26-2 this year. It's an impressive start, but now when you have that success and year by year you improve, round to 32, then boom, big jump to Elite Eight, then boom to the Final Four. But the way that they gagged it away, it's going to be championship or bust this year for Duke, especially with the enormous amount of players that they're able to bring in and the abundance of talent that they do have. And then the number one storyline is Darren Peterson. I just don't know what to expect. It is such an enigma, Darren Peterson this year, who when he plays, he looks like the best player in college basketball. But it's when is he going to play? And when he does play, how long is he going to be able to stay in the game? I don't like the team around him and how they're advising. I hope it won't be an issue in the Big 12 tournament. I really hope it won't be an issue in the NCAA tournament, but I can't sit here and give, I don't want to say this kid, but his team, I'm not talking about Kansas, I'm talking about the people that manage him, the benefit of the doubt. Because this has been sloppy this year. This has been unnecessary, and it's been very dramatic. So my top 5 stories going into March Madness this year, as we're zeroing in on the NCAA tournament, and we can see it coming right around the corner. Kelvin Sampson's quest to win a national championship at the age of 70, after getting so close last year. Danny Hurley going for his 3rd national championship. Tommy Lloyd, can he get the monkey off his back and have the regular season success match up with the postseason success? John Shire, can he cut down the nets? And then Darren Peterson, when the F is he going to play? And how long will he play for in March Madness? Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. We'll come on back. We will toss around the NFL football. We'll get in on some stories on Anthony Richardson, what the Raiders want for Max Crosby, DJ Moore and Brian Thomas maybe being on the move. And then Zach Jackson does a good job. Browns reporter, NFL reporter for The Athletic. He's going to join us as we continue to go through all 32 teams and their offseason needs with someone that does cover the squad. Zach Gelb here with you, 365 Sports.
What I love most about playing basketball is the competition. I really just like being shifty, mastering hesitation moves, changing direction, building chemistry with new teammates. If you're not having fun while you're playing, it's no point in playing the game. You know what to do. Escape basic. Pair of Thieves quick dry underwear. It wicks away sweat and helps keep you dry. You looking for a deficient season?
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com.
I'm here to work out with you.
We did not put this little cookie cutter program together.
I'm in there with you, sweating, yelling, doing the damn thing.
Transformed by Core Home Fitness.
A secret, I travel internationally every year. I struggle with insomnia both at home and especially in hotels. This was life-changing. It's called Fly Kit. My favorite aspect of the Fly Kit is it tells you when to sleep.
Dude, check out this robe. This is the dude robe. It's perfect for after the shower, gym, or even the beach. This thing is awesome. It also has this super premium towel lining to dry you off right away. Dude, what are you waiting for? Get yourself a dude robe today.
At Dreamy, we believe that life can be upgraded in comfort, convenience, and joy. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. Zach Jackson going to join us coming up in about 30 minutes from now. We'll preview the Cleveland Browns offseason as we will discuss Shedeur Sanders. We will discuss Deshaun Watson, what the Browns could be doing with their top 10 pick in this year's NFL draft. So a whole lot to discuss with Zach Jackson as the Cleveland Browns are looking to build this thing right this time around. I feel like I've been saying that for at least 20 years. They did hire Todd Monken as the next head football coach. So we will get a little reaction from the land with Zach Jackson, who does cover the Cleveland Browns. I did see earlier today that the Indianapolis Colts, it's clear that they're going to bring Daniel Jones back. Once again, I don't know if it'll be on a franchise tag. I don't know if they'll get a 3-year contract done where it's probably similar in numbers to a Baker Mayfield or to a Sam Darnold, but I would be surprised whether it's via just tagging him or not getting a deal done. with the way that the Colts keep on raving about Daniel Jones, even though I'm not the biggest believer in Daniel Jones. I'd be surprised if Daniel Jones doesn't get the deal done with the Indianapolis Colts. And not that Riley Leonard is a pro quarterback to me, like a starting quarterback. I think he's a backup. But clearly the Colts value Riley Leonard over Anthony Richardson. And I think that there's a chance they may release Anthony Richardson. But I did see that they have given Anthony Richardson and his camp the ability to go seek a trade. And I've seen this enough now, even though I was not a big believer out of Anthony Richardson during his time at Florida. And I remember saying this when Napier and Richardson, they won that game up against Utah. I remember saying that could be really bad for Florida. And people are like, well, what are you talking about? They won a game up against Utah. I go, it's almost better. And I know this is a loser mentality take, and I hate myself for saying this, but I remember saying it at the time. I said, it's almost better if they would have lost that game and just played really close, because once you win with the coach like that coming in, the expectations go through the roof. And a lot that you saw with Anthony Richardson at Florida, we then saw a continuation with DJ Lagway, where it's this player that is supposed to be so great and is supposed to be so hyped, and you just never saw the consistency. And I don't know about you, Garrett, and I know we're all in this world of potential, but a lot of times, especially with the quarterback position, and sometimes guys, we don't see a ton of them in college, or they don't blow us away in college, and they end up having really great careers in the NFL. But with the quarterback position, if you don't impress me in college, I don't see why I'm running and taking an early draft pick. And that's what the Colts did with Anthony Richardson. And within 2 years, it blew up in their face. And it was more than the fact that this kid, struggles to stay healthy. It was more than just the fact that he wasn't that good.
Yeah.
It was when he checked himself out of that game. I have never seen a quarterback go to the sideline and say, hey, I need a breather. I got to take myself out of the game after a run. And that was the death of Anthony Richardson's career with the Indianapolis Colts, looking back on it.
No, it was. And I think going back to college, too, he was one of those players that he had an opportunity to come back for his senior year, and I think he really should have. Now, given how everything had went with that staff, I don't know if Billy Napier never necessarily could have developed him to a next level to make him better.
No.
But I still think getting those extra year of college reps could have benefited him. And I'm not saying it would have made him like an elite quarterback in the NFL, but it would have made him better than this.
Well, here's the thing, too. We're a prisoner of the moment.
Right.
So we have seen guys like Geno Smith be irrelevant for 10 years and then go have a little bit of success in Seattle. We saw Baker Mayfield get tossed out of Cleveland, who's really never in a position to say goodbye to a quarterback, and then the guy goes on to be good. They just say goodbye to quarterbacks all the time. But that was a quarterback that took the Browns to the playoffs. They say goodbye to him. Baker bounces back with the Bucs. We've seen Sam Darnold the last 2 years not only save his career, become a Super Bowl champion, for crying out loud. So people are going to look at some quarterbacks that had some early struggles. And, offensive coordinators are arrogant. They are. They look at maybe a coach not getting a quarterback to work, and then one of those coaches are going to say, oh, I could get that player to work. Anthony Richardson's only 23. He turns 24 in May. Now, I'm not a believer in Anthony Richardson. I'm not. And I think the NFL has a problem where they draft quarterbacks on the Patrick Mahomes scale. And what I mean by this is they go, this player's not Patrick Mahomes, but if he does X, Y, and Z at the NFL level, he could be like 15% of Patrick Mahomes. Right? It happened with Trey Lance. I don't even know where Trey Lance is right now. Can you do me a favor, Garrett? What NFL team is Trey Lance on right now?
Let's find out.
Dallas? I don't even know.
He is currently with the Chargers, it says.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, now that you say that, I actually do that. Was he – now, I know Joe Milton maybe is the quarterback I'm thinking
Joe Milton's with the Cowboys still.
Did Trey Lance have any other team after the Niners?
Yeah, he went from San Francisco to the Cowboys in 2023, and then he joined the Chargers last season. Now, I don't know if he was in Dallas for 2 years, but he was with Dallas in between.
Okay, so there was a little stint in Dallas with Trey Lance. So for some reason, I remember the Cowboys getting Trey Lance. But anyway, like you look at some of these guys, whether it's Trey Lance, Jordan Love has been good, but Jordan Love got drafted when he did in the first round because of the fact that they thought he could be like 15% of Patrick Mahomes. Zach Wilson, second overall. That was a player. Oh, yeah, he could be like 10% of Patrick Mahomes. And I think that people saw Anthony Richardson with that big arm, and maybe it falls into a little Josh Allen if he could just improve the accuracy. Do you know how tough that is to do? Guys like Mahomes and guys like Allen, I know that everyone wants to get their next Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. They are anomalies. So when you see a guy like Anthony Richardson get drafted when he did, I never believed in him because I just never saw the consistency in college. But I will say with the player that's just about to turn 24 and a player that you're not going to have to use a high draft pick on, like if he gets traded, what's it be, a 5th or a 6th round pick? I could see a team bringing him in and an offensive-minded head coach saying, hey, I could get this kid right. So this leads me to a video. Kevin O'Connell is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell had Daniel Jones in his building. Daniel Jones went to Indianapolis. Kevin O'Connell had Sam Darnold in his building. He ended up going to the Seattle Seahawks. Kevin O'Connell drafted J.J. McCarthy the first 2 years. That's not looking like a good draft pick. It appears that the Vikings are going to be in on a quarterback this year. Now, if I'm Minnesota, I would go trade for Kyler Murray. Not that I think Kyler Murray is great, but if you pair Kyler Murray with Kevin O'Connell and you go out and give him Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison with TJ Hawkinson, and he plays in a dome, I think Kyler Murray, as long as he can stay healthy, which is a big if, could lead the Vikings to the playoffs next year. I would also seriously consider Aaron Rodgers. But imagine a world where the Vikings going out and bring in Anthony Richardson and say, this is a true quarterback competition. We're not going for Derek Carr. We're not going for Aaron Rodgers. We're not going for Kyler Murray. We're not bringing in Tua Tagovailoa. We're taking 2 young quarterbacks that haven't done anything in this league. JJ, Anthony Richardson, we're putting in a good environment. I'm Kevin O'Connell. I win games in this league. I got the best wide receiver, arguably in the NFL, in Justin Jefferson. We have a really damn good defense. There's enough here. One of you guys, we're going to throw a baton out there. Go find the baton, fight one another off for it, grab the baton, then fight one another back for it, but you bring it back to my hands. That's what, like, imagine if that happens where you have a quarterback room, and I don't think this is the way the Vikings are going to go. It wouldn't shock me if they trade for Anthony Richardson, but there's no way that the competition could just be between J.J. McCarthy and Anthony Richardson. Like, maybe they bring in Kirk Cousins, maybe it's Rodgers. Like you got to bring in, I think, a clear starter. But if you don't bring in a clear starter, which would be Rodgers, which would be Kyler, maybe even Kirk Cousins. But if you don't do that, they may take a guy that hasn't shown it yet and just duke it out between JJ and AR and see who's going to find a way to get the job done. But this was 2 seasons ago after the Vikings played the Colts. Check this post-game chat between Kevin O'Connell, KOC, and Anthony Richardson.
Hey, do me a favor, remember something.
Okay.
You're a bad dude.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to play a long time in this league.
For sure.
All right? Go to work every day. Good things will happen for you. I still believe in you. I know these guys too. Shane does too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this organization loves you. Go
yes,
to work.
Sir. Appreciate
okay?
that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, always. All love.
Appreciate it.
I'm just saying, that clip speaks volumes. Could I see Kevin O'Connell calling up the Colts and saying, hey, we'll give you a 6th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, probably the most you'll get back if you're Indianapolis, a 5th-round pick for Anthony Richardson? I could see the Vikings doing it. But if the Vikings go into this offseason or into the season or training camp with the competition being J.J. McCarthy and Anthony Richardson, it seems like you need something else. It seems like you need something else. That's just the way that it appears. But that clip of Anthony Richardson and Kevin O'Connell is all up on the timeline. Let me ask you this, Garrett Ross. The 2 most talked about players so far in the offseason has been speculation about A.J. Brown and Max Crosby. Mm-hmm. Let's start off with Max Crosby. Do you think by week 1, the Raiders are going to trade Max Crosby?
Oh, I would say, yeah. I think there's too much smoke there. I think that he could bring you in some much needed value to fill in pieces around Fernando Mendoza and just kind of that defense as a whole. I could definitely see him doing it. Yeah.
Now, I saw a report yesterday that the Raiders are wanting 2 first-round picks and a player for Max Crosby.
No.
Well, that's fine to want that. Like, right? You know, when I was growing up as a kid, I wanted to date Beyonce. Just because you want something doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And I know people are going to say, well, Zach, hold on. The Cowboys traded Micah Parsons and got 2 first-round picks and a player. You know, they got Kenny Clark, who's a tremendous interior defensive lineman, underrated defensive lineman in this league. And this would be my retort. Micah Parsons, when he got traded, was 26. By week 1, Max Crosby is going to be 29. So do I think it's apples to apples there? I do not. Could you make the case that Max Crosby is a better player than Micah Parsons? You can. The players are very similar. But the idea that the Raiders are probably going to get 2 first-round picks and a player back, I don't see that. Now, what do you call this site, by the way, Garrett? Spotrac or Spotrac? How do you say it? Do you know what the contract site?
Yeah, I haven't heard it the first way you said it.
Spotrac?
I haven't heard it like that.
Spotrac, right?
Spotrac, yeah.
Or Spotrac?
Spotrac, no. I think it's – I don't know. Not the first way.
I have no clue. You know the site I'm talking about.
Yes,
now.
yes.
So they put out some mock trades today. And as great as I think Max Crosby is, and I would like my Patriots to trade for him, it seems a little rich. Like they projected this trade with the Bears. Bears make sense, right? You have a window. You got a quarterback on a rookie contract. Go for it. Go get a game changer on the defensive side of the ball that could take you from a team that went to the second round of the playoffs with a legitimate chance to go to the conference championship game. They almost beat the Rams. If Ben Johnson would have just gone for 2 at the end of the game, maybe they do. But go take that next step in this window that you have. This is what the Raiders would get back for Max Crosby, according to this trade projection. DJ Moore, Tremaine Edmonds, then a 2026 first-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. I think that's a lot. Now, yeah. I think if you centered a trade with the first-round pick and DJ Moore to the Raiders, and then you throw in a 3 or a 2, that's something that I think would be fine. But Moore, Edmonds, and 2 first-round picks for Crosby seems like a lot. Now, it doesn't end there. The Raiders and the Patriots, this would be the mock trade by Spotrac, Spotrac, however we want to call it. Someone will eventually tell me how I don't sound like an idiot when I say that. The Raiders would acquire Stephon Diggs, a 2026 first-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, and then a 2026 third-round pick. I don't know, like the Raiders, I get why they would do it from a pick standpoint, 2 1s and a 3. Why would they want Stephon Diggs
in Vegas? Hell no.
Especially at this stage of his career. The picks are there. I don't know if the player is right. And also, the idea that you got to give up 2 1s, a 3, and a player, once again, it seems like a lot for a player that is about to turn 29.
I would love to have him in Washington if that was a possibility.
Yeah. The thing is, though, and I get it, right? The Patriots were in a similar position as where the Commanders were a year ago. The Bears in a similar spot. The Patriots got around further. The Bears got around shorter. I just don't know the direction of that Commanders team.
I don't either. That's a terrifying thing.
And like, for example, if the Bears miss the playoffs next year, I think they're 9-8. I don't think them giving up a first-round pick is going to crush them. If the Patriots miss the playoffs next year, I think it's 9-8. If the Commanders miss the playoffs, it could be a top 10 pick again.
Yeah.
All it takes is Daniels getting hurt again, and there goes Superman bye-bye, and then that team is picking in the top 10 like they are this year. What are they at? Pick number 7. I think
they're
that's
number
what
7.
we did earlier. So this was the Bills. The Bills would give up Max Crosby, and the Bills would get Max Crosby and a 2026 6th-round pick. The Raiders would acquire 2 first-round picks, one in 2026, one in 2027, a 5th-round pick, and Ed Oliver. Out of these deals, if I'm the Patriots, I would say no thank you. As much as I would like him, Stephon Diggs, 2 1s and a 3. I would say no thank you there. The Bears, more Edmonds, and I guess Edmonds on his way out, so maybe that's on there. 2 first-round picks for Crosby. I would say no. The Bills one I would actually do. Ed Oliver, 2 1s and a 5th. You got a 6 back end Max Crosby. You got Josh Allen. Like for Drake May and Caleb Williams, they're both only 2 years in the league. Allen, you're right there in the AFC. You just missed out on getting back to the championship game. The AFC is wide open. Who knows what the Chiefs are going to look like? You go get Max Crosby. The Bills have tried with like stopgap guys like Von Miller later on in his career, Joey Bosa later on in his career. You go get Max Crosby. Ooh, that's hello. That's hello. So I would, if the Bills trade for Max Crosby this offseason, even if they don't address a wide receiver, in this offseason, I would pick the Bills to go to the Super Bowl. I would. And I would give up, for an organization that has not ever won a Super Bowl. I think you're in a position where, as long as Allen's healthy, you're not going to be anywhere close where you're going to be regretting giving up those 2 first-round picks. So other question I wanted to get to, because we went off a little tangent there on Max Crosby, but I started that by saying, hey, do you think Max Crosby is going to get traded? I did see Tom Pelissero said he wouldn't be surprised in the next 7 to 10 days if Crosby got traded. I don't know why. Something just tells me that he's not going to get traded. I don't have a rhyme or reason for it. I don't think he wants to be a bad guy here, but I wouldn't be stunned if he gets traded. But in my gut, I just feel like Max Crosby is going to be staying with the silver and black. What about A.J. Brown? You think A.J. Brown is gone?
Yeah, he's gone. I think the Eagles are just tired of him. Somebody's also desperate enough to go and want to deal with him. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was somebody like Buffalo too. Like if you get rid of Diggs, maybe – I know that's kind of trading a headache for a headache, but –
yeah, but Diggs had a great run in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Unlocked a lot from Josh Allen. I know they've been separated for about 2 years. But A.J. Brown, I think, is a better player than what Stephon Diggs was. And I don't think A.J. Brown, it's a question about how good he is. It's just that the guy's been a pain in the ass because there's been so many weapons in Philadelphia and he doesn't get along with the quarterback. Do I think A.J. Brown and Josh Allen could coexist? Absolutely. Do I think A.J. Brown could coexist with the rest of the team? Yes, because you look at that team, who else intimidates you on the offensive side of the ball? James Cook, he's a running back. So it's like, Dalton Kincaid, who's a tight end, Khalil Shakir, solid player, but Keon Coleman, they don't even want him there.
No.
So A.J. Brown, Buffalo and New England, it feels like the Eagles right now are probably only getting offered a 2 at most. Either Buffalo or New England should give away their first-round pick for A.J. Brown. It just makes too much sense. I do agree with you that A.J. Brown is going to get traded this offseason. Now, 2 other wide receivers that could be on the move. And maybe there is some skepticism with A.J. Brown. DJ Moore, it doesn't seem like he's ever a problem, but I said this when the whole Justin Fields fiasco was happening in Chicago, and Moore was so outspoken how he wanted Fields to stay as the quarterback and how sensitive Caleb Williams could get. I do wonder where that relationship is at with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams. And there's been some chatter. It hasn't resonated a lot nationally in terms of the way that A.J. Brown has, but there's been some chatter about DJ Moore. I could see a DJ Moore trade coming to fruition, and maybe he's a part of that Raiders deal to get the Bears Max Crosby. Garrett, if you're running the Raiders, and I know you want 2 1s and a player, but if I call you up right now, I'm the Bears, and I say you can get DJ Moore, I'll give you my first-round pick, and I'll give you my first-round pick next year. If you don't want my first-round pick this year because they made the second-round fight, I'll give you my first-round pick next year. Roll the dice on it. And then I'll give you a third-round pick. Is that enough for you for Max Crosby? DJ Moore, a first and a third.
I would push for a second instead of a third. I would push for a second, and that's probably where I would call your deal.
Deal.
That's where we would meet in the middle.
I would shake your hand easily if I'm Ryan Poles, and if I call you up and I go, let's start, and we're not giving you 2 1s and a player. We'll give you a 1. We'll give you more, a 2027 1. We'll give you DJ Moore, and then we'll give you a 3rd-round pick. If you counter by saying make that 3rd a 2, done. Shake your hand in a second. Boom. Max Crosby goes to Chicago. Moore, a 1 and a 2, go back to the Raiders as they try to build with Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Genty, and also Brock Bowers. And that addresses the Raiders getting a number 1 wide receiver and putting Fernando Mendoza in a position to succeed. So Moore's a player to watch that could get dealt. I'll tell you another player that could be on the move here, and that's your LSU guy, Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. had a sensational rookie season, and there was a lot of high expectations for him going into year number 2, Brian Thomas Jr. And I don't know if it wasn't that he didn't mesh with the new coach, Mr. Duval, and Liam Cohen, and he did have quite a few drops last year. But even with it being a bad season for Brian Thomas Jr., 48 touchdowns. Now, the previous 1,082 yards and 10 touchdowns. Now, if I'm the Jaguars, I would find a way to make it work because I believe the player is that good. But sometimes you have a new coach and a new general manager that come on in with James Gladstone and Liam Cohen. They didn't draft this player, and if he hasn't been the best teammate, people say maybe it doesn't fit our culture. Maybe the first year was a one-year wonder. But like you look at Buffalo and New England, we're talking about potentially them giving up a number 1 pick, a 1st-round pick this year for AJ Brown. The Pats pick at 31. I think the Bills are 26, somewhere in that range. You get a better player at 26, let's say, or 31 than Brian Thomas Jr., where one really good year and one season that was not that special. But this guy is either going to be a legit number 1 or he's going to be a very high-end number 2 where he shows flashes of being 1. And I lean that he's still going to be more of a number 1, where how young he is. And you see the first 2 years, Marvin Harrison Jr. be nothing special. And you saw what pick the Cardinals invested in him, a top 5 pick. I'm looking at Brian Thomas Jr. Personally, if I'm the Jaguars, I would keep him. But with Brian Thomas Jr. being the 23rd overall pick 2 years ago, Garrett, I would trade a number 1 pick if I'm the Bills or the Patriots to go get Brian Thomas Jr. I would buy stock at Brian Thomas Jr.
Especially Buffalo. Like I'd get rid of Keon Coleman in a heartbeat and bring him in. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm sold on him being a 1 necessarily. I'm more so think he's going to be like a 2 with the verge of a 1, but he's still a really
like a T. Higgins.
Receiver. Yeah, more like a T. Higgins.
Okay, I would take that.
And I'll take that all day. Yeah,
if you put T. Higgins on the Bills or the Patriots, easily their best receiver.
Yeah.
So we saw year 1 be great. Year 2 was disappointing. Still, his disappointing year in 14 games played was still 707 yards, had a lot of drops, and 2 touchdowns. If you could, like, watch, if I average the 2 seasons, so, and let's say you get the average in year number 3, so that's 1,282 plus 707, and you divide that by 2, that's almost 1,000 yards, 994.5. You would also be getting to play with either Drake May or Josh Allen, so you would think he'd be a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah.
Then the math I could do, it's about 6 touchdowns. Like you hope that it's more 7 or 8. The receptions, so he had 87. Sorry, the font's a little bit small. And then I believe it's 48, actually. I think I've been saying 46, but it's and then you divide that by 2. That's almost 70 catches. Yeah, like how much better are you doing on a first? Like once Lemon's off the board, once Tyson's off the board, and Carnell Tate, that's a move that I think you make instantly. So those are some names to watch right there. Anthony Richardson, right, given permission to go find the trade partner. We obviously been talking about Max Crosby. In addition to that, we've also been talking about AJ Brown, but keep an eye on DJ Moore and Brian Thomas Jr. as well. We'll take a time out right here on the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. Coming on back, we will preview the Cleveland Browns offseason with Zach Jackson, who does a great job covering the NFL and the Brownies for The Athletic.
Do you have a second?
Yeah, come on in.
Thanks. I'm having an issue with Ralph.
With Ralph?
He keeps stealing my lunch.
He's just researching new flavors.
That is slow smoked turkey.
Ralph steals my lunch all the time. You get used to it.
He also peed on my bag.
He is warming up to you. You know, starting a new job is a big change. I want you to think about how you can be more accommodating to Ralph. We're all co-owners here.
If I'm only wearing one suit this summer, it has to be Tuileries Performance Linen. It's wrinkle resistant, machine washable, and built with stretch and breathability that actually moves with you. It'll keep you cool, sharp, and stress-free at your next event.
What does being different mean to me? You know, that is an interesting question.
Because there really isn't one way. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it.
But love is passion. Someone you can't live without.
What do you want? You know, what's that really good non-alcoholic beer I keep hearing about?
Do you have that really great non-alcoholic beer that I keep seeing?
You mean athletic? You're looking at it.
It's athletic. Ask for it.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. We continue our off-season preview team by team. We now check in on the Cleveland Browns. Zach Jackson does a great job covering the Browns for The Athletic, and he's kind enough to join us right now. And I think Zach is actually in Indianapolis at the Combine. And Zach, we appreciate you jumping on board. How you been?
Well, can you hear me, Zach?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I am in Indy. I'm in the hotel room. I've been up way past my bedtime all week. But I'm covering a quarterback search for approximately the 46th year in a row. So here we go.
So let's start off. Shedeur Sanders, you look back at last season when he finally got on the field. What do you take away from, I guess you could say, the year one of the Shedeur Sanders experience in Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a straight line. I think Shedeur did some good. I think Shedeur had some struggles. I think the Browns view Shedeur as a developmental quarterback that they really think has a chance to show improvements and to have a career in this league. I think the Browns view Shedeur in 2026 as a real option, but on the border of fallback option. And I think they're in no position to treat him like he can win the job and keep it long term. So if he does, then they're onto something. And I think they want to see him develop, and there is some optimism for him. But they are, and they have to evaluate every quarterback option, and they are shopping for quarterbacks. So there is a chance that there is a competition, that Shedeur is first in line. He's guaranteed nothing. He does have some supporters in the building, and they want to see. I mean, you know, on the low bar, Zach, of Cleveland Browns history, like, the guy has talent. We saw throws in practice and in some games that are tantalizing. He's very much an unfinished product, and the future here is wide open with a couple of asterisks. You know, one being there's a new coach who has input and should have input, and the other one being that Deshaun Watson's back, signed for one more year, still on the team because they can't afford to cut him, and still on the salary cap for 3 more seasons. So let's see where it goes. Shedeur's very much in the mix, but Shedeur is not guaranteed anything.
You talk about the relationship with the coach. If I was just following social media last year, and I think this was wildly unfair to Kevin Stefanski, the perception on social media was Stefanski hated Shedeur. And now all I see with Todd Monken is, Shedeur gave him a gift for his birthday. They're meeting right when the coach gets introduced. It seems like a warm and fuzzy start to the relationship. How about the relationship with Shedeur and Stefanski? What was the truth there? And what do you think this relationship can be between Shedeur and Todd Monken?
Well, I think most years the Browns are 12-5 on social media and 5-12 on the field, first of all. I think Shador and Kevin had a complicated relationship. I think that Kevin would probably say that he never intended to have Shador as his fourth quarterback. And I think Kevin would probably say that he regrets not getting him more reps somewhere along the way, because when he started playing in mid-November, he hadn't played at all since August. And in August, he started really well and it finished as a disaster. So the reality was that Shador was the most famous fourth-string quarterback that there's ever been for last August and in July. And he showed some good things and he showed some bad things. He was not ready to play, and then he had to play because that's how a Browns season goes, right? 12th time since 99 that at least 3 starting quarterbacks had to play, and 3rd time in a year. So I think too much was made of like Shador throwing to ball boys and stuff like that in training camp. There weren't enough receivers some days, healthy and on the field, for 4 quarterbacks. It was a situation they kind of made up on the fly and didn't really have a clear plan for. It emerged with Shador starting the last 7 games, and in all but one of those games having some moments, a quarter, a drive, a throw, in some cases 3 good quarters. So, no one is surprised that Kevin Stefanski's out. I think people are surprised on some level that the GM got to stay. But Shador is here. He's first in line. He's interesting. He's still famous. And I think he's going to get a chance on some level, but there is no guarantee. And I can tell you whatever it is, it's not going to be just a Shador versus Watson competition. They're going to add to it, and they might be trading for Anthony Richardson to add to that immediately, as in 2 weeks from now.
Wow. So you think Richardson, why do you believe that he's in play for Cleveland? I know on social media people are throwing out the Vikings, but I haven't heard Cleveland.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's younger than Shador. He's cheap. He will be acquired on the veteran minimum for a 4th-year player. He's athletic. Todd Monken wants a mobile quarterback. He's made that clear. And like I said, there is no chance that it's going to be just a Shador Watson competition. So if the Browns don't get Malik Willis, are they going to add Anthony Richardson? Are they going to add Trey Lance? Are they going to add one of the older veterans? Are they going to wait on Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier or somebody that's going to require some sort of commitment? I don't know, but unless they get Malik Willis or Mac Jones, and I don't think there'll be a Mac Jones team, then it is going to be a competition, and they are going to add at least one more person to it. And if you can take a free shot, 5th or 6th round pick on Anthony Richardson and put him in here when your future's wide open, because Watson's only under contract for 1 more year, and because you're probably going to be back in this next year unless Shador is clearly the answer, then why wouldn't you do it?
When you get into Malik Willis, I saw Jordan Schultz are out there the other day, and I don't know if this is going to be true, but they're thinking it's going to be $30 million a year. Can you see Cleveland giving Malik Willis $30 million a year?
I can. And let me be clear that I'm not saying that anyone in the Browns organization has told me that he's first on their priority list or 3rd or anything like that. But I think when you look at it, Zach, I think there's only a small handful of teams that are ultimately going to be in on him. You have some teams already pivoting to the future. You have some teams that already have guys that they're going to develop. So we don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do. I know people name Atlanta as kind of a surprise suitor. If Arizona moves on from Kyler, which seems likely, are they involved there? So I think, the Browns are going to have a seat at the table. They can certainly backload the contract. That's what they do. And Malik Willis is, he's only 2 years older than the guys that they'd be looking at in this draft. He's played not much, right? 6 starts and 3 in the last 2 years, but he's played well. He's clearly progressed. And the Browns at 6 and 24 are not in position to draft a surefire quarterback. So they could make that investment in Malik Willis, backload the contract, and use their 2 first-round picks on tackles, on receivers, on all the things they need to do to give whatever quarterback it is a chance. Because as bad as Shador was at the end of last year, nobody had a chance behind what was left of that offensive line and what was in that receiving group.
So you talk about adding another quarterback in there with Shador and Watson being in the room. Right now, Dylan Gabriel is in the room. I don't think anyone expects Dylan Gabriel to be the starting quarterback. Right. But is that relationship over? Will I'm going to sure they're going to try to trade him, or do you think it's just going to be an outright release?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would outright release him, no. But I ultimately think by the summer they wouldn't do that with the Sanders-Gabriel room. It just, the way it went, it wasn't healthy. It didn't produce anything, and Dylan Gabriel's not a starting quarterback. Dylan Gabriel is a super smart guy. Dylan Gabriel had some good moments, frankly. When he did play, he had some moments where he was overwhelmed. He's a backup quarterback. And if he's not going to be the backup here in Cleveland, and it seems like there's going to be a shift of at least one person, and we know Watson has to be on the team, then the sensible thing is to trade him. So I don't think that that's like first on their list, and that they have to do it by March or they have to do it before they show up for the offseason program in early April. But by the time that the preseason starts, I don't think that Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel will both be on the Browns quarterback room. I think they'll have 4 quarterbacks, but I don't think both of those guys will be in that mix.
And I have no problem the Browns giving Deshaun Watson a seat at the table right now just because of the contract. And I said this the other day, if they expect anything out of him, and I get it, this organization is the worst at identifying a quarterback, then they're just absolutely clueless. The guy hasn't been great since 2020, and obviously a lot has happened since then. Is anyone expecting in Cleveland for Deshaun Watson to somehow be the starting quarterback for this team come week 1?
Only the craziest people. He's a last resort, right? He has to be on the team because they cannot afford to cut him. They have to restructure his contract to get any breathing room for the cap for the next month or so, right? So that guarantees that he's on the team. They'll deal with the rest later, probably over the next 2 years. But for him to play, the level at which he would have to play and the level at which the team would have to succeed to justify that and set up anything for the future, given that Watson is the primary, but not only reason that they are where they are, and given that he's not signed past the end of this coming season, then like they would have to be winning the division and a real threat to win the AFC to justify Deshaun Watson playing. And he would have to play at a level that, like you said, we have not seen. It has not happened. He started 19 games for the Browns. He's played about 12 good quarters, Zach, and he has not played at all since October 2024. So you're right. He's there. A seat at the table is probably a good way to say it, and he deserves the chance to show that he's healthy and go out and compete and knock the rust off and relaunch his career if he's going to be able to do that. But those are ifs, and there is zero evidence or zero logical reason why the Browns would consider him anything more than a fallback emergency option. They've paid him a lot of money. They need him to be a veteran mentor to whatever 24, 25, 26, 22, 21-year-old quarterback or quarterbacks who are going to get added to the room 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now.
Obviously, the Browns, it goes without being said, they have a lot of needs. They're sitting there at 6. Is there a player or two, and I know we're in the early stages of the combine, that you go, okay, that's what you're starting to think the Browns do at 6?
More a group than a player. You know, like the offensive linemen just got here last night. We don't see them for a couple days here at the combine. I think it goes offensive tackle, wide receiver in that order. Up to 6 offensive linemen are going to leave the Browns by free agency. Maybe it'll only be 4 of them, right? But by injury, by free agency, by poor play, at least 5 or 6 are out the door. So they have to rebuild almost the whole offensive line. And they need a receiver. So if the right receiver's there at 6, if Carnell Tate is that good and he's still available, they'll be interested. Spencer Fano, the tackle from Utah, if he's that good and still available, they'll be interested. But that Jacksonville pick that they acquired that turned out to be 24th, that was kind of always earmarked as the quarterback pick, the trade-up pick. But just how this draft class seems to shake out and where the Browns sit at 6 and 24, they have flexibility, they have options, but 6, 24, 39, and 70, I think, is where they sit now. At least 2 of those picks are going to be on offensive linemen. At least one's going to be on wide receiver. And if they end up with the 10 picks that they have now, it would not be a surprise if 3 are offensive line and 2 are wide receiver.
Do you feel like Shedeur is going to be the quarterback of the future, or in all likelihood, they're picking a quarterback in the first round next year?
Yeah, I mean, I would doubt it. I think like I said, I think he has a legitimate chance, but I think the team has to plan for everything. And I don't think that plan A is just letting him open the competition as the leader and win it. And I think he'll be provided the runway and the opportunity unless they get Malik Willis to do that. But I don't think that's in the plans. I think adding to the competition and letting it play out. And like I said, for Shedeur, it was always, hey, let's let him process the way this crazy year went, the draft fall, the waiting of the turn, the playing with no practice, the playing well in spurts and crashing at the end. And let's see, there's a new coach. There's going to be a new system, his first full off season, upgraded people around him. Like I said, there's real optimism from corners of that building and obviously real hope because this is the most direct way out. But I don't see that as likely. I see it as possible, though, and I think, we're 2 weeks away from seeing the next phase of what the Browns think in remaking that room. They're remaking that room. If Shedeur wins it, that's great, and he's a part of it. but they are remaking that room. Make no mistake about it. And it's not just like you hear Todd Monken go on the record and say open competition. That might be right, but it is no way in hell is it going to be just Shador versus Deshaun Watson.
The thing here, and I never thought I'd be equating the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns to the president of the United States, but I like Shador, and I thought it was a joke that he fell to the 5th round, but people either love him or hate him, just like with President Donald Trump. They either love him or they hate him. You're around the guy. Like, you're in the facility. We see so much on social media get spun, makes him look great, makes him look bad. Just year one, I'm not even talking about the play, just covering the guy. What did you see out of him?
Well, it came with a lot of attention, the surprise drop, him coming in as just the second quarterback, even in rookie minicamp.
The mute
thought he
press
was likable.
conference.
Yeah. So I thought he was likable. I thought he had some moments that he regretted, right? Some things he said early in the season. And I think he was just itching for the opportunity. Even when that opportunity came, he kept going back to, hey, I was just asking for this opportunity. I wish I would have had it earlier. I wish I would have had more chances. Like I said, I do think there was some growth, but I think the team drafted him not for publicity, not to intentionally muck things up. I think they drafted him because they saw him as a developmental quarterback and not a 5th round talent, but a player who was available in the 5th round, who had a trajectory and a window to be an NFL starter a year or two down the road. And so they had to know what they were signing up for with the outside stuff, with the name, with all of that. The rest of the league showed you by letting him go to 144 that a lot of people didn't want that. But like I said, no one's ever said that he's a bad kid, or that there's great worries. There's untapped potential there, and there's a lot of attention that comes with it. And now the new staff will get input on what it wants to do around him and how he takes whatever challenge is laid in front of him. And there's a pretty good chance that, like I said, that it's going to be headed for a competition where he is at least certainly going to have a foot in the door, but probably going to start it as a favorite. I don't know if they trade for Anthony Richardson, maybe Anthony Richardson is one to start, but I do believe that in May and June and in parts of July and August, potentially, that it would be an open competition unless they get Malik Willis, in which he will be the surefire starter.
2 more with Zach Jackson, who does a great job covering the NFL and the Athletic, the NFL and the Browns for the Athletic. When we get to Todd Monken, there's been hires before that I've not been excited about, and they've gone on to have a lot of success. Doug Peterson was one. Nick Sirianni was another. What was your reaction when Monken was the guy?
I was surprised because I didn't think they were going to hire a 60-year-old first-time head coach. He was here before. It was not a great year. He was an offensive coordinator for Freddie Kitchens, and that whole thing went sideways, which led to the Stefanski-Barry era. But I think the overall reaction, Zach, if it was it was more to what the Browns are on offense and less about Todd Monken. And I think people, including me, were genuinely surprised that he was the chance. I think they thought they would just go younger, one of these new age guys, maybe an outright analytics guy, frankly, based on what this front office has done. But they didn't hire Jim Schwartz. They didn't end up with Nate Scheelhaus or one of the other guys. They hired Todd Monken. He knows the division. He can coach offense. His previous year in the building did not deter him from wanting this opportunity, and he has been out front saying, let's go. We're going to be better than we think, and he's energized. So I say let's check back with him about October 15th. But I don't think that anybody was down on Todd Monken. I think there's just an overall show me. The Browns have to show me, and Monken embraces this before anybody starts to believe anything on the offensive side.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he kind of early on, and it's only been a short amount of time. I didn't love the Brian Schottenheimer hire last year, but then you hear Schottenheimer speak and just the way that he conducts himself. Monken reminds me a little bit like Schottenheimer in the early stages that way.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat, man. He's blunt and he's pumped up about this, and he knows, he's fully embracing the underdog thing, fully embracing we got to get out there and make people believe. And we're going to get out there and we're going to clean up some of the stuff that's been in the way here before. So, he's 2 months, right, from having a full off-season class and even having the players in the building. But I think he has tried to establish that whole new energy thing. And we'll see by the summer, what's different and what different pieces he has to work with.
I said, in the season that Stefanski's going to get fired, and he probably wanted to get fired to give himself a different destination, because I think the guy's a good coach. He won the Coach of the Year award twice in Cleveland. But with Andrew Berry, I always thought he was going to stay, but I was very conflicted on should he stay, and I did lean that they should just clean house. Ultimately, why is Berry still in charge here?
Probably the answer is because they're so committed to this plan that Barry put in place. And despite the outright failure and embarrassment of everything associated with the Watson trade, they're here. There haven't been wholesale changes anywhere except the offensive staff, really. Most of the defensive staff, except Schwartz, is still in place. They're handling the cap stuff the way they have. They did have a good draft that probably swayed it towards Barry staying, and they need to have another one. This is probably going to be the youngest team in football. It's going to have 25 to 30 first and second year players on it, maybe, and the whole offensive line needs rebuilt. But if they do hit some draft picks, the cap situation gets better going forward. They still, some of their guys on defense are clearly still in the prime. Myles Garrett, the best in the league. Denzel Ward, one of the best in the league. Carson Schwarzenegger, Grant Delpit, among the best in the league, right? So there's some building blocks there. And yeah, people find it hard to believe, and I'm one of them, but they do things differently. It's the biggest scouting staff in the league. It's the biggest analytics staff in the league. They pushed all this money forward to be good the last 2 years. It didn't work, but they're committed to it. So we'll see what happens.
Zach, always appreciate the insight and the perspective. Thanks so much for jumping on board with us today.
All right. Thank you.
There you go. Zach Jackson does a great job covering the Browns and the NFL for The Athletic. And that will actually do it today for the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. Oh, we got a poll question here today. What part of March Madness are you most hyped for? Bracket busting upsets, buzzer beaters and drama, Cinderella story runs, and winning the office pool. Because of how top-heavy we are this year with freshman American players, if you give me Loyola Chicago or George Mason, I'm always going to love it. But I want to see the big dogs feast this year. So I'm not going to go bracket-busting upsets or Cinderella story runs, which are very similar. I'm going to say buzzer beaters and drama. I best of the best this year. Fight it out. And there's like 15 to 20 teams that I think can win a national championship. I don't want that many upsets this year. Now, I'll be the first one when UMBC or Fairleigh Dickinson wins or George Mason, Loyola. I'll be like, yeah, it's awesome. And I'll change my tune there. But right now, I want to see the best of the best get there. And I want to see big name programs with big name players there at the end in the Final Four. That will do it for the Zach Gelb Show. Big thanks to Andrew Valet. Big thanks to Garrett Ross. Big thanks to Zach Jackson for joining us. But most importantly, big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning on in. We're live Monday through Friday right here on 365 Sports. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@365SportsYT. youtube.com/@365SportsYT. Subscribe. Also, on Instagram at Gelb, ZACHGLB, or on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. We will talk to you mañana on a Friday, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.